You are watching Macro TV. We are still busy with Study Unit 2 and it is Chapter 4 in Fourier-Berger. We are using the ISLMBP model to have a look at the effects that policy changes or external shocks has on the macroeconomy. Now, our little recipe to analyze internal or external disturbances are given on this page. There's always a primary effect and a secondary effect, and that is the adjustment to the initial change. Then it's typically summarized in the third step, and then the fourth and the fifth steps are adjustments of the balance of payments position either via the money supply or via the exchange rate. And I'll talk a bit about these in a moment. Now, this video's example is a decrease in the repo rate. In other words, expansionary monetary policy. So the monetary authority, the Reserve Bank, they want to stimulate the economy and cause an increase in income. So they do this by reducing the repo rate. The primary effect is that this causes an increase in the money supply and a reduction in interest rates. Because interest rates are lower, investment increases, spending increases, and income increases. And the LM curve moves to the right, from LM0 to LM1. Now, because we have an open economy, this increase in incomes causes an increase in imports and a decline of the current account. In other words, there's a deficit on the current account after this. And because interest rates are lower, there's also a capital outflow in the financial account of the balance of payments, and we end up at an equilibrium where there is a balance of payments deficit. So this expansion is braked or choked or limited by the secondary effect that takes place. Now, this can be explained as follows. Because incomes increased, there's also an increase in the demand for money, which means that interest rates increase slightly, investment and spending and incomes are slightly less. But because incomes decline now, that means that imports then are slightly less, and it results in a recovery of the current account, as well as an increase in interest rates, which means that there's a slight inflow of capital into the financial account. So you have this primary expansion, increasing incomes and lowering interest rates and putting the balance of payments in a deficit position. But this doesn't sort of just run away from the policymaker. It is braked by this secondary effect, which just sort of breaks those expansionary effects of the increase in income and the lower interest rates. But the net effect is we still end up in a balance of payments deficit position. The equilibrium would be over here where the new LM1 curve intersects the original IS curve over there, and we are below the BP curve, which tells you that there's a balance of payments deficit. Now we need to make the adjustments to bring this economy back into equilibrium, where you have both the real sector, the monetary sector, and the foreign sector in equilibrium. So this balance of payments deficit means that there's a net outflow of capital. That means that the money supply is decreasing, and the LM curve now shifts to the left from LM1 to LM2. That means that interest rates are pushed up, investment is slightly less, expenditure is less, and incomes are reduced. Because incomes are reduced, imports are limited, and the current account position improves. Because interest rates increase, there's a capital inflow and the financial account position improves. And now you end up still having a balance of payments deficit, but that deficit is slightly smaller now. So that would put us at an equilibrium where we have sort of still the original IS curve, but now LM2 over there. And we are still below and to the right of the original BP curve. Then the final adjustment occurs because there's still a balance of payments deficit. That means there's still a net outflow of capital. It implies that there's an excess supply of rand. The rand then depreciates, increasing exports and reducing imports. And that means, again, you improve the current accounts of the balance of payments. Now, exports and imports are components of aggregate spending. So if exports increase and imports decrease, that means spending increases and incomes increase, and the IS curve moves to the right. At the same time, this change in exports and imports also shifts the BP curve, and it shifts to the right from BP0 to BP1, and now we are at an equilibrium again, where you have the intercept of IS1, LM2, and BP1. Now, the end result is quite important. This was decreasing the repo rate, expansionary monetary policy. So you would expect that the total net effect of all the changes has to be an increase in incomes and a lower equilibrium interest rate, as the graph shows. I would say that this is where the ZARB hits the petrol on the economy. The Reserve Bank goes, they decrease the interest rate, and you expect that increase in output or income. Now, we typically ask you, as explained with the aid of a diagram question, so you need to be able to draw this and explain all the different steps in the chain reactions.